that's who you were.
No, punk-ass bitches from the right call me Fredo. My name is Cuomo. I'm an anchor on CNN. Fredo is from The Godfather. He was that weak brother. And they use it as an Italian aspersion. Any of you Italian? Are you Italian? It's a fucking insult to your people. It's an insult to your fucking people. It's like the N-word for us. Is that a cool fucking thing?
You're a much more reasonable guy in person than you seem to be on television.
Yeah, but if you want to play, then we'll fucking play. If you've got something you want to say about what I do on television, then say it. But don't call me a fucking insult.
Hey, listen.
What?
I don't want any problems.
Yeah, you're going to have a big fucking problem.
What's the problem?
It's a little different on TV. Don't fucking insult me like that.
I didn't insult you.
Fuck, you call me Fredo. It's like I call you punk bitch. You like that? You want that to be your nickname?
I didn't call you that.
You called me Fredo. You know my name's not fucking Fredo.
I thought your name was.
You did not think my name was fucking Fredo. Don't be a liar.
I thought your name
You want to be a
was.
man, stand up like a man.
I'm standing up, man.
You want to be a man, I'm here. Then fucking own it. Then own what you said.
Hey.
Then own what you said.
Listen, man, I don't have a problem with you, man.
Yeah, you're going to have a fucking problem.
What? What are you going to do about it?
I'll fucking ruin your shit.
then.
I'll fucking throw you down these stairs like a fucking punk.
Please do.
Why, so you can fucking sue?
You don't want
So you can fucking sue?
Well, why don't you do it
Go
then?
take a swing. You want to call me Fredo? Take a fucking swing.
I'm not gonna swing
Take
at
a
you.
fucking swing. Watch your fucking hands.
I'm not gonna
Take a
swing
swing.
at you.
Watch your
Hey,
fucking
I'm not
hands.
gonna
Take a swing.
This president has a keen ear for what to say to play on people's fears, to stoke anger. And people are very suspicious of many things, including the media. So I went out against it early. It was so damaging, so ugly and intentional, such a slur, I said it was like the N-word for journalists. Wrong. After I said it, family and friends started calling, reminding me of what I knew and screwed up. The N-word carries a legacy of violence and murder and prejudice that is so profound in disrespect that being called fake could never carry that. What I said was wrong and hurtful. And if I knew that, I should own it and apologize. I didn't hesitate. I apologized because my intention was to protect something that mattered, and this did the opposite. But I didn't want to disparage African Americans or the legacy of slavery, the opposite of anything. I didn't want to increase any divide. So that takes me to what's going on right now in the media, chasing after Tucker Carlson and Pirro, the latest provocateurs on the Trump train over at state TV. They should apologize for what they said about every minority group they could target collectively, though Carlson is the main mouth. Apologize? Are you kidding? They're not going to apologize. Stop asking. They want to press the divide. They want to attack what most want to protect. And ironically, you give them attention for doing something wrong, and they use that attention to say it more, and ironically, use your negative attention to play the victim. Big boy will say, the left is coming at me. It isn't nice. At the same time, he would strip away the sensitivity toward those who are actually victimized. Hypocrisy often goes hand in hand with harshness. Few bullies can withstand what they dish out to others. Listen to what Carlson says. He would vote for a presidential candidate who said, it's these lunatic Muslims who are behaving like animals, and I'm going to kill as many of them as I can if you elect me. Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys. The Congressional Black Caucus exists to blame the white man for everything. He said this about a TV host. She seems extremely C-wordy. He didn't say that. He said the actual word. As for Jeanine Pirro, here's a taste.
Which, according to the Quran 33:59, tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
You know what they're doing. This BS is currency for them. They get paid for this. The base likes their heroes to be base. They've seen this president make it to the White House in part by doing the same thing. Now, a lot of this stuff that's coming up, at least about Carlson, is from years ago, when he was desperate for attention. Here's the test. Would he say the same things today? No, he's too busy playing the victim. He'd only say that he was naughty, but he wouldn't repeat them tonight. Why not? Come on, big man. Read the list of all the things that you said and do it again and show that you mean it. Come on. You're not more about the money now than you are about the truth, are you? He says apologizing to the mob costs people their jobs. What a coward. Why don't you repeat what you said if it's not such a big deal? You're not going to apologize. He's being treated unfairly by those criticizing the same. Give me a break. See this guy and the others for what they are. If you mean it, own it. Don't just protect your money and your fame, or infamy in your case. Apologize if you want, but that takes character. That is strength. That is integrity. Own that you did something wrong. Why people react in the moment the way they do, and what should happen to those people now. Now, I'm not talking about the people involved in the actual confrontation. I'm talking about everybody else. Please accept that in the actual confrontation, no one was hurt, thank God. I've not seen any credible evidence that the kid involved did or said anything extreme to the man playing the drum. The group taunting the kids was being unduly provocative. Where were the chaperones? Why did a school event involve MAGA hats? Then we get to the heart of it. The face-to-face encounter. The man, Nathan Phillips, apparently wanted to diffuse the tension, and he walked up to do exactly that. And surely the kid, Nick Sandman, he doesn't seem to be afraid, but he did make a choice, and that was to make it into a standoff. That was not a good choice. Was it legal? Sure. That's not my test, and it shouldn't be the test. Here's mine. If that were my son, who happens to go to a great Catholic school, would I like what he did? If I were there, would I have allowed the kids to be in that situation? No and no. There was a disrespected play that doesn't work for me in these circumstances. I don't blame the kids. My concern were the reactions more so. The left and the right almost instantly had equal and opposite reactions. There were reports of extreme misconduct, attacks by the kids, reverb about it being set up to hurt the kids. The man with the drum was accused of lying and provoking, and then came the president. Nick Sandman and the students of Covington have become symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. They've captivated the attention of the world, and I know they will use it for the good, maybe even bringing people together. It started off unpleasant, but can end in a dream. Isn't that your job? Not the teenager, right? Weren't they out of their depth? Aren't they supposed to be protected from this? Aren't you the one who's supposed to find a way to bring us together instead of exploiting every opportunity you find to divide? Railing on the media and the left, propping up the kids as victims. You neglect that they were mainly victims of their own choices and actions. Shouldn't we discuss that? Wonder if the hats had anything to do with your muted response. This play by POTUS is bad for two reasons. One, the kids shouldn't be pawns. They are kids. I'm not excusing their conduct. I don't know who consented to them. I don't know who consented to those hats as a school event. There are issues of behavior for the parents and the school, period. But they're not players in the left-right wars just because of the hat and the confrontation. I do give them a little leeway as kids. All kids, any kids. That's why our law treats them differently, and certainly should, even more than it does. The second reason this is really bothersome. Our president hasn't said a word about Steve King and his bigoted, white power-friendly yap. His party, his fellow Republicans, elected officials in Congress, all came out against King. He stayed quiet. But now, when the white kids wearing the MAGA hats get into it with a minority, he's up for it. And what message does that send? You go after white kids, POTUS doesn't like it. Go after everyone else, maybe he'll stay silent. There's a pattern of choices by this president, and we have to call it out because it's not what we're about, especially when and where this happened. Think of this, all of this taking place at the Lincoln Memorial on MLK weekend. The Reverend once told the nation there he had a dream of equality. What happened here? Ain't that dream. There was no violence, but it wasn't nonviolent protest. It was a default to opposing something for no good reason, literally looking for differences, and partisans rushing to weaponize it. This confrontation is the truth in one major regard. It is a true reflection of where we are. We seem to be able to agree on nothing. Tim?
Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
13 seconds of silence. You saw him. He was just taking it in. There was no rejection. There was no disapproval. 15 hours later, this president tried to defy what you just saw.
I started speaking very quickly. It really was a loud, I disagree with it, by the way, but it was quite a chant, and I felt a little bit badly about it.
So he's against it, even though he inspired it. But he was impressed by it, though he felt badly about it. This is also known as lying. But once again, his party took whatever cover they could find. Senator Romney tweets, "The chants at last night's rally were offensive, and I'm glad the president has disavowed them." He did not disavow, not really. And others in the party just keep ducking. Senator Cruz said he's not interested in color commentary. Senator Cornyn said he hadn't seen it and walked into a hearing. Senators Rounds and Moran reportedly said the same. Look, the problem here is that the president's trying to have it both ways. Feed the base its outrage and then try to convince the rest of you that his actions aren't outrageous. Here's the proof.
David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow. Okay?
A disavowal with a shrug. 2 days later, to Jake Tapper.
I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. Certainly, I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine, and it would be very unfair. So give me a list of the groups, and I'll let you know.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know David Duke.
No good groups among white supremacists, by the way. What's he doing? He's struggling. When you're struggling to disavow white supremacists, it's a problem. When you see a moral equivalency between those fighting for the Confederate flag and those fighting against it, that's a problem. And of course, picking on women of color and telling them to go back to the countries they come from when they were born here or are U.S. citizens is a big problem. I argue this. His hedge that we just saw here makes it worse. It would be more honest if he were leading that chant at the rally. Own the animus that you are spreading on purpose. So there is no measure of solace in his feigned frustration with his folks. It shows not that he didn't mean it, but that it is indeed a tactic, a con, not a principled stand, not something he just believes deep in his bones. He's playing them, and then he's trying to play you, period. That makes his efforts every bit as dangerous and maybe more so than the rantings of a diehard racist. Why? Because it's one thing if you're too stupid to know how stupid you sound. But if you just see advantage in spreading hate, that makes him like the punk in the park saying, "Fight, fight, fight," under their breath until others join in and coax someone to throw a punch. A president should not be a punk. He should be the guy who separates those in conflict, finds a way forward, whose very presence inspires people to be their best, not their chanting worst. There's a bigger problem here, though, because to be honest, despite his best efforts and for all the media madness surrounding this president, he hasn't succeeded in pitting us against each other, not really. The bigger problem is that when exposed, when called out, he looks for help from his party and he keeps getting it. That's the biggest failure afoot. Republicans enabling vitriol. They should be ashamed, but they're not. They should absolutely call out this man as they would a Democrat, but they will not. And their reasons for restraint stink. They are afraid of criticism by him because he's popular. They're afraid of a primary challenge. All of that is anathema to good leadership. And that, I would argue, is the worst part of this president's perfidy, his faithlessness in his office. He is breaking his oath to you. It is very hard for people to look at what Steve King was saying. His plea of ignorance, whatever, that's about him. If he's not smart enough to know that what he's saying is stupid, that's on him. But for those who support the president, this is a testing moment right now. He says he's not a bigot. He says that he's the least racist person you've ever met in your life.
He's told me that. He's told me that like three or four times
Great.
in interviews.
Great.
Yeah.
We only know what you show. Now is the moment. This isn't something that you don't follow. First of all, that's BS, okay? He follows everything. He consumes media like this compulsively. So, and he pays attention to the shows. He knows that's BS. It's an excuse. He's ducking it. Don't let him. If you support the president, you should want him to come out on this because it will give you the cover that you say that you want, which is, I don't support a bigot. He's not a bigot. And where is he right now?
Come on, really? Yes, he's not a bigot. I've already said, of course he is. Look at the evidence. This is not just my opinion. This is evidence that data that has been actions that have been collected and memorialized and even on tape over the years. So what's in question about this? So I don't, listen, Steve King is one thing, the president's another. I know you say the president should be speaking out about this. He can't. He can't because the bigots and the racists support him. He does not want to lose their support. If he speaks out against Steve King, they're going to think he's not one of them again. So what does that say about him that he can't really, in a very strong and important way, condemn them, find people on both sides, that he can't do it? What does that say about him? Again, Trump supporter who's overlooking some other bigoted, racist aspect of this president. For what? You think you're going to get a tax cut? How much? How much money is it worth to you that you have someone who is a racist in office? How much of a tax cut does it matter? There isn't that much money in the world for me and for people who are discriminated against, for people of color. It's not that much money.
I hear you. But first of all, you are aware and educated in a way that
are you saying Trump supporters are not educated
some may not be.
and aware?
I'm saying that, look, there is no monolith, right? Some people are ignorant. Some people in this country, I don't care what their partisan stripe is, are ignorant. Some people don't want to see what's right in front of their face. They want to believe it's not true. Other people will believe the president when he says, well, I'm not a racist. And I'm saying no matter what you believe about the president.
I'm not a racist, but I wouldn't want my daughter to bring home a black man. I'm not a homophobe, but I wouldn't want my son to be gay. Really? Come on.
Who's that?
That's what people say all the time. I'm not a racist, but I don't think that blacks should be doing this. I'm not a homophobe, but I wouldn't want my daughter to be a lesbian. That's being homophobic.
Absolutely.
The other thing is being racist. Even though you may put that little caveat before, the little precursor, but that doesn't erase your racism or your homophobia just because you say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't disagree with any of that.
Okay, so the president saying I'm not a bigot doesn't erase
right, but that's
bigotry.
That's why I am embracing this moment. Because no matter what you think about yourself or the president, everybody must agree that this is no time for somebody who is not a bigot to be quiet. This is no time to be that, especially if you were elected by this country to lead. Because if there is one value that must define this country, as imperfect as it may be executed, it's equality. Yeah. It has to. That's all we are. It is all that knits us together. Is our respect for a constitution and a legal framework that makes all equal in the eyes of the law.
All men are created equal.
That's right.
And it's
of keeping us safe, say they've never seen anything like it. They're going to the Senate and the House tomorrow to implore Congress to finally take this seriously. We are not a wall away. This is not about wall or no wall. It's always been about physical barriers, wall, I don't care what you call it. And you don't know what comes after the and because our dialogue has been all about the wall. Bravo, Mr. President. You've won. You've dominated the conversation. However, the loser is the reality at the border. Frankly, despite Pelosi's efforts to ignore his ploy during the political season, which was smart, the Democrats have fallen into the fight to stop the wall. And all that energy over how much fence to build or not build and where and how does he get the money in national emergency, complete compromise of our best defense. We aren't talking about the real problem, and now it is upon us. Our laws, guidelines, system made us vulnerable to the exact problem we actually are facing. Epic numbers of families coming together. Overcapacity at the biggest facilities already. Literally over 100% capacity. You'll start hearing the numbers. They are frightening. If you don't have the accommodations or the staff, okay, so give them those things. Well, it takes time, and you haven't planned. And even if you could, what about the case agents? What about the judges? Here's the problem. Time plus capacity problems equals trouble. Not as a result of neglect. I am assuming everybody does their job excellently. And still, overcrowding, time, tension, illness, violence, abuse. It would be shocking if there are not tragedies. So build a wall. They're not sneaking in. They're coming to get processed. That's what the officials say. That's what they're going to say tomorrow to Congress. If everyone comes the right way, here's the problem. It may be even worse. Why? Because you can't handle the flow now at the ports of entry. In a way, having the illegal crossing has been like a release valve. It's not the right way. You don't want people to come illegally. It's wrong on a number of levels. But let's look at why this is happening. On the side of the migrants, you got desperation and a misconception of ease of asylum, especially if you have kids in tow. The second part of what I'm seeing is a perfect storm, the systemic side in the U.S. Asylum laws don't address the realities, and you have a lack of capacity. You can't handle the flow. Then the factor that should bother us the most because we could control it. Our president and leaders are fighting on a different front. We're ignoring this. We've done it at our own peril. The money allocated is not being put in the place that would address this concern. Democrats, I know that you're big on oversight right now. I get it. But this is an opportunity. Deal with this. The House, the Senate hearing tomorrow, that's something, but it's not enough. I've been there. I'm going to go back. I've seen the problem. I've talked to the men and women. I talk to them often. The people who are demonized like a marauding horde. The president wants you to be afraid of those coming. Why? Makes sense. Fuel outrage, drive enthusiasm for what he wants, the farcical wall. Here's the problem. Build all the fencing you want. You're not going to stop this problem. Here's the face of the enemy, folks. The president wants you to be afraid of the migrant. Here's the truth. You need to be afraid for them. They're coming with false hope, and in most cases, nowhere to turn. They're dealing with a system that can't handle them, and a president who wants them treated like ants in a kitchen. Now you know. Now Congress knows. What will you demand? What will they do? I'm going to go back. If these numbers come true, you have to see the reality. I hope they don't. I hope the projections that we showed you tonight are off. But if they do come to fruition, Congress, it is time to do your damn job. You know the president has been selling something else. I know that people don't expect anything better from the system right now. Please show the American people they are wrong. Do your damn job. Address. You see what former Congressman and former presidential candidate Ron Paul sent out? This. Take a look at it. I want you to see it. It's ugly. It's bigoted BS. It was deleted and blamed on a staffer. No word on any consequence for that staffer yet, but the message remained, and it deserves attention. This is not who we are at our best. Effigies of Jews and blacks and Asians and Hispanics. The irony of calling out Russia as a poisonous, pernicious influence, but for spreading diversity as this ugly concept, not for election meddling, something that so many on the right still hide from. All right, but forget the political hypocrisy. That's really the least of the transgression here. The case is this. Demonizing who is different is a cancer. And look who sent it. Republican Ron Paul from Texas. He matters somewhat. His son is Rand Paul, the Kentucky senator. Nothing from him about this, by the way. And we need to expose it because the ugliness is contagious. The BS from Paul resonates. It encourages more us versus them ugliness. Like what? Well, here's the proof. Calling the cops on 12-year-old Reggie for mowing some of somebody else's lawn by mistake while working for a neighbor. Like this lady calling the cops on 8-year-old Jordan for selling water in front of her own house. Are you kidding me? Are we this estranged, this disconnected, this anti, that we're going after kids, that we can't just go out and talk to somebody who's your neighbor? Of course, this is true. This is where we are. How do we know? Look at the border. Now, I know some people will say, don't show it. It's ugly. Don't encourage this kind of thing. Don't give it the attention. If I do that, then I'm spreading it. No, I believe what you ignore, you empower. Hate lives in shadows. It withers in the sunlight of truth and decency.
As well. There are many, not all of his supporters are bigots, I'm not saying that, but there are people who are out there who don't stand up to this president. And so what category does that put you in if you don't stand up to this president when it is obvious, beyond a doubt, that what he is promoting is bigotry. You use the word racist if you want. Some people want to use that word, but for me, it's bigotry because it's more. It's about blacks. It's about, as you always say, Chris, you call it the brown menace.
Yeah.
It's also about anti-Semites as well. And on and on. It's about misogynists. He emboldens that sort of thing because he thinks it will help him. He knows it will help him politically. And what does that say about us as Americans? That something like this can help him politically. It's unfathomable to me. I just don't understand it.
Well, look, we are in a cultural reversal right now. We had spent years letting people know, like this guy in Gilroy, that you need to stay down and you need to stay away because we are not about you.
Right.
That has reversed. Here's what I feel badly for. When we're in a place like this in Detroit, and on the radio show, I get to talk to people all across the country. He's doing them a disservice, the people who believe in him as a disruptor of the norm, who will finally find some way for government to care about them and people like them. Because now they've got to own all this talk. And a lot of them didn't sign up for that. They signed up because they want manufacturing back. They want other things. You're right. Some people cotton to him because of the hate, but not all of them.
Well, there are many reasons that some of the people who do it on television do it because they feel that they have to politically. They're getting paid. It's a paycheck somewhere.
And they're afraid of him. He's very popular.
And they're afraid of him,
party.
right? And they're afraid of him. Other people do it because in some way they think it's a reflection of them. And if they call out his bad behavior, his bigotry, and at times racism, then that makes them either bigoted, racist, or complicit. And I think that is something that you got to dig deep. That's a fantastic question to ask yourself in this moment. Who am I? What am I? What am I supporting? And is what I'm doing American? Is this the best way, not only for me and for my family, for this country as well? Am I elevating, or at least prioritizing, bigotry and racism over the right thing to do?
I mean, I think,
and economic advantage as well.
Yeah, and look, it is an obvious question.
Yes.
Because you cannot say that I love the president because of his economics and I don't like what he says on. No. It's not like the guy is picking one team over another in a football game.
Yeah.
These are real divisions, and he's playing on them, and they cannot be dismissed. They may think they can be, but they cannot. And tomorrow night, I mean, you know how much I love you, and it's going to be great to see you up there because this is a chance. This country is desperate for better than it's getting right now.
Yeah.
What man or woman can have a message and connection themselves as the proper agent for that message with the American people? And it's great that you're going to be bringing out that conversation.
That is a very important question, and we have many important questions that we are going to present to the candidates tomorrow night.
Explain to me, what does lasagna of lies mean?
When you make a lasagna, you start with one layer of pasta, then you have the meat, then you have ricotta, then you have some more cheese, then you have some sauce, and then there's another layer of pasta. And then there's more meat, and then there's more ricotta, and then you have some more cheese, and then you have some more sauce. And you build it more and more and more, and that is the lasagna of lies that we are dealing with on this probe. Do you understand?
Matzo balls in the equation in minutes, but you go ahead.
Carl Bernstein is saying it's like a matzo ball of lies. It's all. What say you two?
It's a goulash of lies.
Chinese food.
Because
that's.
I say from the South, Chris, it's a gumbo of lies. It's a jumbo. No, it's a jambalaya. How about
L-I-E-A.